is Capital.
From Global's newsroom at 8, Storm Lillian is bringing down trees and closing train lines as she sweeps across the country.
We're not used to stormy weather. It tends to happen from October to March. So yes, this is not great. A lot of people on staycation. It's a bank holiday weekend. A lot of people on the roads as well. So lots of hazards out there.
Forecaster Claire Nazir has told Capital the timing's not great as we head into the bank holiday. Parts of the UK could see 80 mile per hour winds as lots of us head away for the weekend. It's thought about 14 million of us could be on the roads today. The M25 is expected to be one of the busiest. We're going to see our energy bills go up by 10% this winter. Ofgem's put up the price cap, meaning the average bill will increase by about £150 a year. Kath Bennett from Citizens Advice told Capital lots of people are worried about their bills.
There's nearly 5 million people who have got debt to their energy supplier. 25% of people are so worried about it that they say they could be forced to turn off their heating and hot water.
Kamala Harris has promised to find a new way forward if she becomes the next US president. She'll go up against Donald Trump later this year after officially accepting the Democrats' nomination. And Donald Trump says he's not worried that Taylor Swift will sue him. He used AI photos of her endorsing him, but he says they were made by someone else.
Capital Weather.
Check the weather on Global Player, the official Capital app.
Storm Lillian is bringing some strong winds for lots of us, but it'll stay dry in the south, highs of 23. From Global's newsroom, Capital Reports, I'm Lottie Morley.
This is Capital from Global.
On the BBC Sounds app, on your smart speaker,
play BBC Radio Nottingham,
and on your radio.
The sound of Nottinghamshire is
BBC Radio Nottingham.
At 8, with the latest for Nottinghamshire, I'm Kevin Stanley. We're going to see a sharp rise in energy bills this winter. The regulator Ofgem has announced the price cap, which is the maximum amount a supplier can charge, will go up by 10% from October. That'll add around £150 a year to the typical gas and electricity bill. Here's Ofgem's Chief Executive, Jonathan Brearley.
We are continually challenging companies and saying, can you do things cheaper? But the truth is, when something happens internationally in the international markets, then that unfortunately gets fed through to our bills. And the truth is that will continue to happen until we build a new energy system.
Strong winds have brought down trees and branches in parts of Nottinghamshire this morning. There have been reports of problems on the A52 near the Nottinghamite and also on the Ring Road near Beechdale. The windy conditions are likely to continue for the next few hours. The former Nottingham Forest player Jermaine Genus says he is consulting with lawyers after being sacked from the BBC. The one-show host and Match of the Day pundit was dismissed over alleged inappropriate behaviour in the workplace. He was asked for his thoughts during an interview with Talk Sport, where he was presenting when yesterday's news broke.
I can't really talk about it. As you can probably see, I am not happy about it. But currently, as it stands, I'm going to have to let the lawyers deal with it. You know, there's two sides to every story.
Kamala Harris has accepted her party's nomination to be the presidential candidate for November's election in the States. At the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, she promised reforms to immigration and tax cuts for working-class people. A former gambling addict from Nottingham who stole nearly £400,000 from his employer to fund his addiction has now started a recovery service. Ben Jones is one of the founders of Time Out, which provides one-to-one support for others with compulsive betting behaviour. Ben explains just how bad things got for him.
A customer came to me wanting to place an order, and something in me just said, yeah, here you go, here's my details. And they paid me the money rather than the company. And then it became more and more regular, and it turned in from once a month to once a week to once a day to pretty much every day I was stealing money. And the amount was £370,000.
There's potentially fresh hope for the former Debenhams shop in Nottingham city centre. The Grade 2 listed building closed its doors in May 2021 and has remained empty ever since. The City Council says it's actively working with the owners, Longmead Capital, on how to bring the building back to life. In your sport, the former Nottingham Forest captain Joe Worrell has joined Championship side Burnley on a 4-year deal. Worrell came through the Forest Academy before making his Reds debut at the age of 19, went on to make over 200 appearances. Notts County secured their first win of the season with a 4-1 victory over Grimsby Town at Meadow Lane last night. 2 goals for Dan Crowley helped Stuart Maynard's side secure all 3 points.
Look, we all know Dan, he's a magician. He's incredible. He makes things happen out of nothing. He's one that you can give him the ball on the football pitch, he can have 2 men round him, he wriggles out and finds a pass. Yeah, his performance was absolutely outstanding tonight. It's flawless, really. The win moves the Magpies to 4th in the League 2 table. In cricket, England have a narrow first innings lead over Sri Lanka after 2 days of the first test at Old Trafford, and the first day of the county championship match between Durham and Nottinghamshire at Chesterley Street was dominated by Durham. They closed on 393 for 5. And Nottinghamshire's weather, as we said, a windy start with rain and sunny spells, becoming drier later but staying blustery this afternoon with highs of 20 Celsius. A dry start to this evening, but persistent rain will move in overnight, lows of 10 Celsius. For an update anytime, you can ask your smart speaker to play BBC News for Nottingham.
Here's Callum Leslie.
Jermaine Genius is having his say after being sacked as a one-show presenter and Match of the Day pundit. Newsbeat's Eleanor Sherwood. The ex-footballer's gone after what's understood to be complaints about behaviour at work.
And he was on TalkSport last night saying there are 2 sides to every story. He says his lawyers are dealing with it and he can't really say much more, but did say he's not happy.
What we've heard from the BBC is just confirming he's not a presenter anymore.
Yeah, and that's about it. It's thought that allegations involve messages. TNT Sports, where he also works, says it's not commenting. His profile's been taken off his agent's website too.
Thanks, Eleanor. A big moment for one political party in America next.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States.
The Vice President, Kamala Harris, officially taking on being the Democratic Party's candidate for November's election. It's after the man who's president right now, Joe Biden, decided not to run again. One of the topics she brought up, rights around abortions, which have been stopped or made harder to get in nearly half of US states.
Why exactly is it that they don't trust women? Well, we trust women.
She'll be up against Republican Donald Trump, who's trying to get his old job back. Andrew Tate's been told he can't leave his home over a new investigation in Romania into allegations of forcing people to work and underage sex. He denies doing anything wrong. He says he's waiting to go on trial in the country on other charges, which he also denies. Like here, Edinburgh's copying cities like Amsterdam, New York and Berlin and bringing in a tourist tax. It'll be an extra 5% on any stays there. Local politicians say they'll use the money to improve things around the city. And maybe you're headed there later.
The lights off, carry me on. Reply and we'll go back to strangers.
The Archives, Kenya Grace and Blink 182, just some of the names on the day one lineup for Reading and Leeds. On to football and a first win for Enzo Maresca as Chelsea boss in the first leg of their Europa Conference League playoff.
Because we are in a moment in the process, there are some moments that we can manage better. And we struggle, but I think it's all normal.
That against Swiss team Servette. The club's been criticised for having too many players, 42 for the first team on the club website. Kilmarnock beaten 2-0 at Copenhagen. Hearts 1-0 down after the first match in their Europa League tie with Victoria Pilsen. In cricket, England are trying to get further ahead of Sri Lanka later after day 2 of the first test.
Surya walks in and bowls to him. He's down the pitch and he's hitting it out towards long on, well over the boundary for 6. Real aggression there from Jamie Smith.
Half centuries from him and Harry Brook, leaving them with a 23-run lead. Marcus Trescothick is the assistant coach, so how's he feeling about things?
Pretty good. I think we've had to work really hard today. A bit more time to bat tomorrow and we'll see what happens after that.
Play gets going again if the weather holds up at 11. This is Newsbeat. The time right now is 7:30.
Hello, I'm Chris Barrow with the BBC News. Kamala Harris has accepted her party's nomination to be its US presidential candidate amid rapturous applause at the climax of the Democratic National Convention. She told cheering, flag-waving supporters in Chicago that if she became president, she would ensure free and fair elections, foster the rule of law, and transfer power peacefully, and unite the people of the country.
Our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward. I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me.
With more on Miss Harris's speech, here's our correspondent Emma Vardy, who's in Chicago.
I think she ticked a lot of the boxes Democrats will have wanted in this speech tonight. She took the case to Donald Trump, spoke about her background as a prosecutor, as the person who's going to be the one to argue against him. But of course, what happens next is that she's got the next few months now where the campaign ramps up even more, the battle ramps up even more, and she'll have to deal with Republicans attacking her at every turn. So she has taken a lead in the polls, but it's certainly not a done deal yet.
As Kamala Harris was speaking at the Democratic convention, Donald Trump fired off dozens of posts on his social media platform, Truth Social. He described his election rival as a radical Marxist who wanted to spend Americans' money on illegal immigrants. He accused her of hating Israel and of causing the Hamas attack last October. At one point, Mr. Trump sent out a seemingly angry post asking, "Is she talking about me?" The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived in Ukraine for a visit in which he says he wants to share perspectives on a peaceful resolution of the war with Russia. He provoked anger in Kiev last month when he embraced Vladimir Putin during a trip to Moscow. His arrival there coincided with a Russian missile attack on a Ukrainian children's hospital. Our correspondent Nick Beek has more details from Kiev.
I think it's certainly useful for President Zelensky of Ukraine. He can point to this visit by someone who runs a major world economy, at the same time as drawing on the support from Western allies. And time and again, he said that some of that support may not have come quickly enough. But the background to this trip by the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, is a previous trip he made 6 weeks ago to Russia. Now, that went down extremely badly here in Ukraine because Mr. Modi was seen embracing Vladimir Putin on the day that Russian missiles killed more than 40 people across this country.
This is the World News from the BBC. The Chief Minister of Pakistan's Punjab province has promised decisive action against gunmen who killed 12 police officers. Mariam Nawaz said the attack on Thursday would not go unavenged. The officers came under rocket fire when one of their vehicles broke down in the Cacha area. The Supreme Court in Venezuela has endorsed President Nicolas Maduro as the winner of last month's disputed general election. The opposition has alleged widespread fraud in the vote. The ruling said the court indisputably validated the results issued by the National Electoral Council, which has named Mr. Maduro as the winner. Sanjay Dasgupta reports.
Nicolas Maduro hailed the court ruling as historic and forceful, but within minutes of the decision, the opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez responded by posting an image on social media saying void. In a video message, he accused the court of attempting to please the president. Mr. Gonzalez wasn't the only one to question the Supreme Court's standing. The UN Human Rights Council has warned that it lacks independence and impartiality. The president of Chile described the court decision as a consolidation of fraud.
Canada's Labour Minister has predicted that the country's vast rail freight network will be running again within days. It ground to a halt on Thursday because of an industrial dispute. The Minister, Stephen McKinnon, has ordered employers and unions to take part in binding arbitration. Two companies had locked out more than 9,000 workers after talks with the Teamsters Union broke down. Some cabin crew at the Scandinavian airline SAS in Norway have gone on strike over pay and working conditions. Mediation talks between the firm and unions broke down overnight. Cabin staff say their wages are 15 to 30% lower than at competitors. Most flights will operate as planned. The dispute does not involve pilots. That's the latest BBC News.